Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is The Late Show, and I'm live from Los Angeles, your host, Young Brando. We're gonna talk about watches at the end of a long day for me. That's why I'm quite late, so I do apologize, but we are gonna get right down to it. As you guys know, um, I have been talking about the results from the Oak collection at Christie's Hong Kong, which was a live auction of a single owner collection on November 26th. This was a collection that was exhibited at the London Design Museum just last year. It's quite significant. A selection from the personal watches of a businessman by the name of Patrick Getreide. We went through a number of pieces that were either quite rare by any standards, vintage pieces that were bought from previous editions of the Only Watch, which of course came under close scrutiny more recently, but previously was simply known as a charity auction that focuses on the sale of one-of-a-kind pieces to raise money for research, for medical research. And there are also a number of pieces by the new independents, so to speak, by the emergent leaders of independent watchmaking that were commissioned by Patrick Getreide. I did not necessarily talk about most of them, so maybe we'll wrap up that discussion now. I'm gonna post the link still, so if you want to draw my attention to any of the particular lots, feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat and I can change my tracks. There are also a number of historically significant watches too that we didn't necessarily look at, so that can be something to bring up. And of course, on the same day, there was a larger selection of watches that that came up on the block by Christie's as well, which was an auction called Important Watches. So we will take a look at those watches as well. I mentioned last time around that Jose Perez, aka Periscope, periscope.com, instagram.com/Periscope, a friend of the channel, brought up some allegations against the authenticity of lot 2537, which is a Breguet diver watch from the 60s, and also about the Patek split-second chronograph that I believe is lot 2607, I want to say. Yeah, not in each case, it was about certain incongruities and inconsistencies with previous examples. About the Patek Philippe reference 1436, which of course distinguishes itself by its black dial. The allegation was that the watch was not actually born with a black dial, which would have been quite rare, possibly one of a kind. And in fact, Jose was basing that allegation on the simple fact that the same watch was sold at Sotheby's, New York, back in 1992, if I'm not mistaken, with a silver dial. So quite interesting that these things still happen. But at least there's someone out there, the hero we don't deserve, Jose Perez, who once every so often does this kind of work to expose at least a handful of examples in every single auction season, at least to bring into attention certain inconsistencies, at least to raise questions so we can have a more knowledgeable, informed conversation about the best pieces. Right next to it, lot 2606, another piece that did not sell, but that was quite attractive. The reference 130 is one of my all-time favorite watches. This particular example is in steel, and as much as I like the elegance and sleekness of the precious metal cases from the same time period, especially those pink gold cases by Émile Vichet, I do appreciate the added beefiness of the Wenger-made stainless steel cases, of which this particular piece is a very good example. It also has a very clean sector dial. Of course, with a tachymeter on the perimeter of the dial. And heat blued hands for both the 30-minute totalizer and the centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand. This is a piece from 1938, 33 millimeters of stainless steel. And you might say the authenticity is a little more anchored because an almost identical stainless steel reference 130 with a sector dial was sold by Christie's Geneva on May 2018, and that had the preceding movement number and a very close case number. So it does make sense for a piece to occupy more or less the same characteristics from the same time period. And the sector dial in this case, which is like a three-tone silvered number, is also authenticated by the archival extract, if I'm not mistaken. Silvered, hour markers inscribed in enamel, and tachymeter scale, made in 1938, sold on June 19th, 1940, with a 13 ligne caliber. hand wound with a minute counter. Again, these kinds of pieces are not entirely the most aspirational or the most desired vintage watches. They are, by all accounts, quite small, quite diminutive by modern standards, but I think they have a very unique charm in stainless steel. They have a little bit more of a presence, even though essentially you can think of this as a very fancy and classy dress watch, more or less. And in precious metal, they're extremely elegant. And again, I think one of the most ideal dress watches, as long as it does not disappear on your wrist. I completely understand that concern in a way that a lot of people have in our age, in year 2023, with smaller watches, even though the watch media, even though the journalists insist that smaller watches, that dress watches are making a comeback. I have to say, in our age where people are bigger, taller, more muscular, but also more overweight as well. It's only normal that the gold standard has all the way gone up to 40 millimeter, and a lot of heritage brands, even Patek Philippe, started making 42 millimeter and even 42 millimeter plus watches. I don't know if you guys followed the new Les Cabinotiers releases by Vacheron Constantin. Those are the one-of-a-kind watches that they reveal as a capsule collection every year. One of the criticisms by the Hodinkee staff writer Mark Kausdarich was that they were skewing on the side of being large. But of course, right? In not only because these pieces serve as a canvas for a larger than life display of craftsmanship, artistry, gem setting, micro painting, and whatnot. They're also ordered by people who just want what they want, and what they want is what they can't find in the catalog. And a lot of times when it comes to classic brands like Vacheron Constantin, chances are, if they can have their way, they will ask for a bigger watch. We like to think in our little nerd space on YouTube, and I say this proudly, claiming very much being a nerd myself. We think that everyone wants more complicated and more miniaturized watches, but trust me, most people think 42 millimeters is even small for a watch diameter, right? There's a reason why Invicta watches are still a thing. There's a reason why fashion watches are still, by and large, very big. There's a reason why a lot of these big-time brands, including Patek Philippe, are erring on the side of bigger watches. Rolex has bloated their standard models over the years, from 37 to 39 to 40 and more. So I don't think there is any reversal, any wholesale reversal on that trend, even though, of course, the so-called watch journalists trying to market you more watches when you have basically satisfied most of your urges when it comes to sporty, larger pieces, they will continue to tell you that smaller watches are in vogue. I'm not afraid to tell you the opposite, even though my tastes really skew in the other direction. I would rather have a smaller watch, but I'm neither stupid nor vain enough to think that that opinion needs to be shared by a great majority. Anyway, I think this was a fantastic watch, great example of an absolute classic, which is the first serially produced chronograph by Patek Philippe in reference 130. The pre-auction estimate was 1.6 million to 3.2 million in Hong Kong dollars, which, of course, in hindsight, seems very optimistic and quite hefty. And in fact, no one actually took a bite out of this, and the watch did not sell. We have talked about the reference 5516, which is another immediate neighbor of the Patek 130. That was an AP perpetual calendar, mid-century with a leap year indicator, highly legible, slightly oversized for the time period, great condition, one of the only, if not the only, example that could, for the foreseeable future, appear in a public auction. That one didn't sell either because there are about 9 similar examples that have been accounted for. I think there are about 3 examples which have the leap year indicator at 6 o'clock rather than 12 o'clock here, in a positioning or situation that is exchanged with the moon phase indicator. Of this particular configuration, I think there are about 6 examples, 4 of which are accounted for, 3 of which are in AP's museum, one of those 3 is, I think, actually on loan from Tiffany and Company, since it has the double signature here. So there's a good chance that this is the only one that is the only one publicly available for sale. It is arguably more attractive than its rough contemporary 1526. It has a leap year indicator. It's larger. It's much more rare, even though 1526 itself is not a mass-produced watch. I think that has around 210 examples or something, but this is one of a half dozen, more or less. It is also, again, if you care about these things, slightly more horologically complex. Having a leap year indicator on the dial for a watch from late 50s, that seems like quite a feat. And I think it's also extremely balanced and highly legible too. And I was, once again, I'm not going to say disappointed, but surprised that it didn't sell either. But once again, the pre-auction estimate, having been set between 6.5 to 13 million in Hong Kong dollars, was, in hindsight, quite optimistic. But there are, of course, significant reasons for that. I explained it in the previous episodes. Basically, for Christie's to acquire the right to sell these single owner collections, of course, they had to make certain promises. Of course, they had to offer a compelling and enticing package to the owners of these collections, and these optimistic estimates must have been part of that sell, so to speak. Overall, as I mentioned in the previous broadcasts, the auction didn't particularly perform well, but one particular genre with a number of watches selling for a relative bargain, with an even higher number not even selling at all. But there was one category that did actually perform quite well, and that was the independent brands, the pieces by Voutilainen, by F.B. Jean, and by Recep Recepi from his Akrivia brands actually sold quite well. Lot 2593 was a one-of-a-kind example of the AK06. In many ways, the AK06, you can think of it as the transitional model between Akrivia and Recep Recepi. As you probably know, even if you are not particularly interested in Recep Recepi's watches, you know probably that such uncomplicated, simplified, time-only pieces seem to be the primary genre that is of interest to collectors, to most collectors who focus on independent brands. Part of it has a lot to do with established independent watchmakers choosing that path themselves, Philippe Dufort being the example for this transition, having made his name in producing commissioned Grande et Petite Sonnerie pieces for Audemars Piguet, having made the duality, and having finally settled on the simplicity, which is, of course, a simple, time-only, and relatively speaking, a very diminutively sized dress watch. And of course, the second step of that is a lot of times these watches offer two things to the enthusiastic collector. One, of course, the price point, right? Even though a lot of the new independents, as long as they have some sort of gravity, some attraction with their proper name, they're already entering the market with six-figure prices. But nevertheless, all things being equal, an uncomplicated watch almost always costs less to make and costs less to buy compared to a much more complicated timepiece. And perhaps in inverse proportion to that, you have arguably a canvas, a very limited canvas, where you have to make the most difference as a watchmaker, which in fact ends up perhaps foregrounding a lot of the artisanal aspects of watchmaking, which of course have taken on a much more significant and even emotional meaning in the post-quartz era of watchmaking, right? Watchmaking is still, to a certain extent, in the mechanical sphere, it's still about accuracy and precision. That, of course, speaks to the perennial attraction of the tourbillon, but it is also about the application of artisanal techniques which express the individual skill of the watchmaker or watchmakers, and which, in fact, finds a compelling identification on the part of the wearer as someone who aspires to express their own individuality, their own singular taste in these watches. All this goes to say that AK06 was in fact the first time-only watch that Recep Recepi produced under the Akrivia brand, the first watch without the tourbillon, and therefore I think it signified a transition in his watchmaking. It is a kind of a bridge between the Akrivia brand and his proper name. Hey, Sam, nice to see you. Nice to see you. And Chris Lenehan says, I just bought 2242, the GG Mickey Mouse watch. I'll bring that up next, right after this. How about that? And it's nice to see all of you. If you would just click the like button, for a small channel like mine, it makes all the difference. So I would genuinely appreciate that. Usually this plaque has a number. In this case, as you can see, it is inscribed with PU for pièce unique, one of a kind. And it also has a very fascinating blue dial with a grainy texture. Again, even though the aesthetics of an Akrivia timepiece is quite different from the post-classical time-only pieces that Recep Recepi has been producing under his own name, the Chronomètre Contemporain series, and most recently the Chronomètre Antimagnétique, with their Jean-Pierre Agman cases and everything. But nevertheless, the fact that this is a time-only piece, I think, really signifies an important connection between the Akrivia brand and Recep Recepi's proper brand. AK06 was introduced in Baselworld in 2017 as the brand's first watch without a tourbillon. It has a 41 millimeter case with a recessed crown and bevel-edged wide lugs. A very significant presence, I would say, compared to a classically designed dress watch. I'm a big fan of this cushion-like case design. AK06 was a limited edition of 50 pieces. but they usually have either a golden or gray dial, matching with either the titanium or stainless steel case. This particular one is a stainless steel example with a unique blue dial. The movement, architecture, and finishing is right in the same level, right up par with, of course, Recep Recepi. They are, at the end of the day, products of the same workshop. And the piece comes, of course, with the full set of its original accessories. The pre-auction estimate was set between 3.2 to 6.4 million Hong Kong dollars. The watch finally sold for almost 5.3 million Hong Kong dollars on November 26th. And that, of course, amounts to almost 680,000 in US dollars, which is a significant chunk of change, considering that the retail price of the AK06 was in stainless steel around 80,000 Swiss francs, if I remember correctly. So I think there were, 25 examples in stainless steel, 25 in titanium, and the stainless steel version was right around 80,000 Swiss francs. So not, I think Monsieur Getreide made out fairly well, at least with this particular watch. This was lots 2593. Hey, Swiss. How are you doing, man?
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you. I hope I didn't make you wait for too long in the
No, it's fine. Don't worry.
How you been?
I've been doing okay. I have been sick for a week.
Okay.
Flu, the usual. But
Not
now
the
I
new
have.
one. Not the new one. The usual flu as in
Yeah.
garden variety.
Yeah.
Okay. But you are feeling better now?
Yes. Finally, I've been better.
Well, it's nice to have you back. What have you looked into this auction, or what has been going on recently in the market? Do you have anything to?
No, not really. Um, the oak collection. The only thing I've seen about this was the periscope Breguet thing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, incidentally, we can bring it up because
So, so the oak it stands for one of a kind, yeah.
yes, but I
And
have to say, already there, when it was being exhibited in a museum, I had some objections because it seems that a lot of the pieces out of the 600 some examples, even the ones curated,
oops.
they're clearly not one of a kind, right? But
Okay.
I mean, I understand
Yeah.
especially in the mode of the auction, they love exaggerating everything and saying like, extremely rare, possibly one of a kind. So it fits that mold really well. But a lot of the selections, I have to admit, are very tasteful and very rare watches. Sometimes one of half a dozen, one of a handful, one of only 99, whatever. I think that's rare enough. Yeah, but it's not catchy enough, right? You can't.
Yeah, I agree.
I was talking to an Englishman about one of Vacheron Constantin's slogans. He loved the, do better if possible, and it is always possible.
Yeah.
And he had quite a chuckle with one of not many. Because I mean, he was saying that it must sound better in French, and I was trying to say no. Actually, it's just it's just not a very good slogan. So one of not many collection. I don't think that sounds catchy enough, but one of a kind. That
You
sounds
know
fun.
what? It's not even translated. The one of not many. They don't have that phrase in French.
Okay, wait. How
So
how would you say it in French, anyways?
uh, un parmi pas beaucoup. It sounds stupid. Let me Google that. I'm
C'est pas,
curious now.
c'est pas terrible.
No. uh,
But yeah, so this was the watch, and yeah, Periscope was calling it the joke collection, which is just as catchy, of course. So here is the signature on the dial of that watch, juxtaposed with two previous examples of a similar piece from the same time period.
yeah.
Looks very different. Possibly, at best, you might say a refinished dial. That sounds already like a
I mean, this
positive
photo
scenario,
right here, it is very like flagrant.
right?
Something has happened.
Yeah, it's too perfect, and it doesn't even look like luminous
Yeah.
material, to be honest. To me, it just looks like some sort of paint that aspires to look like expired, um, expired material. And one thing that I observed, like if you look here to one of the proper examples, you'll see how the lollipop hour hand has these cracks in the luminous
Yeah.
material, right?
Mhm.
And of course, I know you are not a particularly big Rolex fanboy, but you would also know that the whole origin of Mercedes hands is to avoid that, right? You
Yeah.
divide that
Mhm.
plot into three, so it becomes relatively more stable, less prone to cracks. And again, I mean, like, for a watch, this particular example that did not, by the way, sell at any rate, um, it just seems too perfect all around. Same thing about the bakelite bezel. I think that also looks too pristine. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too cynical, but I usually trust Perez's judgment. because you see how it tarnishes and how it's damaged even if it doesn't crack when it comes to that bakelite bezel insert. This is a previously sold example from the same time period, and this is the example from the oak collection.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the photo is not on the right angle to really inspect the bezel, but yeah, I mean, the thing is,
Sure.
even if it's true or not, whenever Periscope is coming after you, you're in. It's bad. So that is crazy. Yeah. I mean, it is highly suspicious, of course. But the main thing is the dial, and I think it is pretty flagrant, pretty obvious that something happened.
Something happened.
Something happened.
Yeah, and again, it might be just coincidental because there were many other pieces that didn't sell, but the two pieces that Perez singled out, the lot 2537 that we were just talking about, the Breguet diver from 1962, and lot 2607, which was the 1436 with the black dial. These two didn't sell. And in this instance, Perez was saying that the same watch was sold previously in the 90s by Sotheby's New York with a silver dial, and that the archival extract does not in any way specify that this is a black dial at all. As you can see here, it just says raised hour markers in gold, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And the dial is possibly fake, but certainly does not belong to this particular watch, or rather, the watch was not born.
Yeah, it was took from another reference and just slap it in there. Make it look brand new. Pretty crazy. I mean, when you have literally hundreds of thousands of price difference between one dial and another, I mean, of course, some people might think that it is a good idea to do such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it had become a whole industry, but I guess the more these things keep happening, the more there's at least one person who exposes, at least to make an example, one or two things each time. And the way, these things don't sell anymore with the same kind of confidence in previous instances of the markets, I think it's overall it's a good sign. I mean, also sometimes you just need to say why, because this is an exceptional watch anyway, right? Like a mid-century split-second
Oh
chronograph
yeah,
from
absolutely.
Patek. Look at this movement. Like
That
why
is exceptional.
do you need to do anything else? But of course, a black dial, this watch is 2-3 times as much if it sells, if you find the right buyer. So people
Yeah.
continue the mix and match game, which is not not very nice.
Look, I continue to argue that most people in this watch world, they prefer money over the watches. They don't really give a shit about watches. They like the money that's behind it. And stuff like this is bound to happen.
Yeah, and I suppose that, maybe we are too naive, right? Maybe that's the case in every industry, Swiss, that
Hmm.
ultimately people care more about the business side of things than the passion, than the knowledge, than the scholarship, um, than the joy of collecting and whatever else. Um, but then again, there needs to be some standards, right? There needs to be some sort of regulation. There needs to be at least the community of collectors who keep each other honest. And that's why I do appreciate Jose a great deal. Guys, yes, that's periscope.com. Let me put the link there where he publishes his more extended and historical studies as well as exposés from the auction seasons, where he singles out at least a handful of examples every time the circus comes to town. And on a more day-to-day basis, you can check out his Instagram account, which is at Periscope, instagram.com/Periscope. So both of those links are there for you. Chris in the chat was saying that he bought the Gérard Jantin Mickey Mouse watch, the lot, what was it, lot 2242 from the Important Watches auction. This wasn't part of the Oak collection, but it was sold by Christie's Hong Kong on the same day. I have a similar watch, not Mickey Mouse, for better or worse, and not by Retro, but I have a Retro Sport, which is a jump hour with retrograde minutes. And I do love this particular genre by Gérard Jantin,
That's
for sure.
a double Mickey Mouse. Two for the
It's
price of one.
that's right. It's not only by Retro; it also has
It's by
two.
Mickey.
Yeah, it's by Mickey. uh, yeah, because it has the retrograde minute hands, of course. It also has a retrograde date hands.
Yeah, very poetic composition. Look, the one on top, he's running because he's late, and the one in the bottom, he's happy because he arrived in time. Very poetic dial.
That's amazing. I also, I kind of like the fact that the animated and larger Mickey kind of punches um,
Yeah,
number 60,
he
right?
punches the 5 out of the 6. Like, boom.
And kind of steps on the smaller one as well. So it kind of makes up for the fact that the retrograde minute hands, for whatever reason, because they usually like doing that, is not integrated to the Mickey Mouse here. Um, this is a relatively a late example
Mhm.
of a Gérard Jantin watch. I think it's from the Bulgari period, but the limited edition, one of only 80, in titanium, 100 meters water resistant, which is very good, very respectable. And let's see, what does it say? Does it say what year? No, but it's significantly oversized compared to mine at 45 millimeters. Mine, I think, is barely, I want to say barely 40 if you include the crown, which is very, you know, protruding
Mm-hmm.
and domed anyway, so it's kind of artificial when you count that. But I like this, honestly. To me, I'm not a big fan of Disney or Mickey Mouse, but the color scheme and the whimsy of this one kind of wins me over. And it is,
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of retrograde as a complication. So I really like this double retrograde composition. Very nice.
yeah, and it's sold, I think, for about 25,000 in US dollars, which again is a nice chunk of cash. But
Is
you
this
know,
with the premium or without?
I think this is before the premium, but since
Mm.
the buyer is in the chat, uh, he might be able to tell us. He says yes, almost 25K, and I think that's before the premium. When I read the fine print here, and yeah, he observes the same thing. Look at how 60 minutes is shattered, like he's running
Yeah,
through it.
that's awesome.
And I also tried to buy lots 2203, the GG. Let's see what that
Oh,
was.
Jaeger, I like that.
That's always the $1 million question, right? Do we pronounce it the German way or the French way? Ooh,
Wow,
sexy.
that's a big, big watch.
Yeah, that is a big.
Wait, did it really sell for 50K?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God, that's a crazy price.
and that's
Because this is a Tourbillon Celestial. It's
yeah.
the one that came out last year, right? At Watches and Wonder last year.
Mm-hmm. And it's like number one.
That is crazy. Whoever bought that is a genius. Crazy watch.
I know you're a huge fan of JLC, as I am, but you're probably even a bigger fan. Um, so I
Let me
trust
see.
your
One
judgment
of
on that.
28. Look at the uh, what do you call it? German silver movement, just like the Langes.
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing. Look at the anglage, nicely rounded. It's beautiful.
And you see how they have worked in
Yeah,
the JL
the
logo.
skeletonized logo on the barrel. Yeah, they don't mess around. Can we look at the dial again?
Of course.
So look, it has a calendar, a celestial calendar, and you have the tourbillon, which is down there, and the tourbillon like orbits around the dial. I think it's throughout the day. I'm not
That's
sure.
right.
I don't remember. I think it's throughout the day, and it's supposed to show like the 24 that you see on the inner bezel. Um, but yeah, damn, that is nice. Because I remember it was last year at Watches and Wonders, and I think I could try it on, and it is it's very big, very very big. But
Mhm.
dude, when you come to 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 the red bar with this piece here. Like, boom. See, look, you can see like there is the inner plate,
Hmm.
sapphire plate, where they printed the constellations, and it's like opened up for the tourbillon for the escapement. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So basically, it is a 1 minute flying tourbillon, but it orbits around the dial, like you said, Swiss, in roughly 24 hours, but really in one sidereal day. So it's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
specific.
23:59 something.
Yes, 23
Or
hours, 56 minutes, and 6
yeah, there we
seconds.
go.
And the silicon escape wheel and pallet fork, I think, are
Yeah, you can
kind
see them in blue right there.
yeah, highlighted in purple and blue. And I think it was introduced maybe a couple of years before, but it is fairly recent. Was it the theme, the celestial theme? Was it the theme last year or the year before? But anyway, it's a very recent limited edition for sure.
Yeah, it was last year because it came out the same. I think it was the same time when they did the quadriptyque, which is
Mm.
also like themed around the moon. Then they made
Mhm.
this one themed around the sky, and they had another one themed around the sun, but I don't remember if it was exactly that or not. I remember there was another one with like a bunch of diamonds, also some crazy calendar piece.
Yeah, and
That's a
this one,
good price. That's a crazy price.
yeah, and it's also, again, one
Tourbillon
of the
Suisse.
watches that performed, right? It sold for an amount that's closer to the upper ceiling than the lower end of the pre-auction estimate. That was lot 2203, which sold for 403,200 in Hong Kong dollars, which is almost 520,000 in American currency.
Chris Linehan. I was bidding on it. Dude, you missed out. Should have bought it. It went out for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win everything, but I'm glad you at least got out with the Jarajanta Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. Oh, wait, wait. Just up there? Right there on the left? What's
Yeah,
that? Vacheron Constantin calendar minute repeater.
yeah, you
Wow.
see that
That's a
slide?
sexy watch.
The case itself looks
That
very,
that that is probably one of my dream watches, but like really one I could never have. It's not even a grail because a grail, like you try to get it. That's a dream watch. It's part of my dreams.
yeah. Well,
Look at
I
that. And that's like 37, 38, like perfectly shaped. It
yeah.
was
To me,
probably made in the 50s. It's still in perfect condition. Well, I mean,
no,
it
no,
must be.
90 mid 90s apparently.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, to
Okay.
me, to me,
Okay.
it's always a very attractive proposition when you have this kind of complication. Even a chiming watch that's wearable is very attractive in and of itself. Again, not that I roll in those circles, but we can all have our fantasies. Um, but 37 millimeters, perpetual calendar, moon phase indicator, leap year indicator, and the minute repeater, and a watch that you can actually wear. That's very, very cool. And that's sold for 1.89 million in Hong Kong
Yeah,
dollars.
that's a lot of money.
Look at those three
Like
finger bridges.
three 350, 350 grams. Well deserved. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's like $250,000 in US dollars.
Oh yeah, 250.
Ah, we can actually listen to the chime. Let's check it out.
Dude, you better be fast at counting. That thing, that thing is.
I have to say, again, not that I'm the audience of this watch. The As much as we can get from the recording, the sound quality is great, but
Yeah.
the wheezing of the governor and the pace of the chime, uh, let's just say it's not the best I've ever had the chance to
No, it's
listen.
not the best, but it's not the worst. There's much worse.
Yeah.
I think the worst one I've ever heard, it was inside a reverso. And
Mm.
you could tell it was not very well thought of, because when you were trying to activate it, the the case would pop out, like when you try to reverse it. It was really hard to operate.
Yeah, it was. One of them was actually sold as part of the Oak collection, the 90s 500 piece limited edition.
Yeah, yeah, one just like that. See? Because they put the slider the same side where you would push to pop out the thing.
Hmm.
So when you try to activate the slider, you can accidentally pop out the case, and it's it's not very practical, let's say. Could have been better.
Yeah, they have a recording for this one too. I mean, it wasn't bad at all. I would say
No, it
actually the
was good.
pacing was better than the Vacheron.
And I really like that you can see the governor. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with it. It's a very mesmerizing sight, and that's kind of it's the mechanical marvel, right? That's basically the programming that goes into how to sound out that particular time. So it's of all the things that you could open work or exhibit or display on the dial, that seems very intuitive to me. And that's sold for 327,600 in Hong Kong dollars. And that's a little more than 42,000 in US dollars. Lot 2567 from the Oak Collection Part 1.
Yeah, that's okay. However, the day it breaks, you better be prepared to pay another big sum of money to get it repaired.
Yeah, I don't think a minute repeater is easy to service. Maybe you might be better off just hiring your own watchmaker for the year.
Just keep it broken and never tell anybody.
Yes, you can even wear it to all the big meetings, and
You know what? You know what? They should do some. I'm just waiting for some kind of brand, some Chinese brand, to do like a fake minute repeater with like the slider, and you can see the governor and everything, but there's just no mechanism inside. It's just to show off.
Yeah, it's just maybe
So you
like
can
an
trick
electronic
people.
electronic beep 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 beep.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can wear a non-working minute repeater to a big meeting, and if someone asks you, like, can I hear it, then you can say, no, it's too precious, I can't.
You are not worthy.
I'm sure it's a trick that's been done, Swiss. Trust me, if we have thought about this, in
Yeah.
our little brain trust here, all the scoundrels that populate the watch collecting scene must have pulled something similar in the past. The Voutilainen GMT6 sold for an insane amount, actually above the estimate.
Wow. That's a lot. Why so much though? Is there like is there a hidden tourbillon or something?
Not at all, actually.
Because that's almost like 800,000. Oh, it's a only watch piece. Oh, that's why. Okay.
One of a kind, only watch, I think from, I want to say, the 2015 edition. But overall, also, Swiss, the watches that performed well, that sold for significant amounts of money, especially in comparison to their pre-auction estimates, in this auction, were mostly the independents, like the Jones in the Oak collection sold well, the Voutilainen sold well, the Acrivia sold well, the even other only watches that were not necessarily connected to one of the hot names today did not sell for exorbitant amounts of money. I mean, the Roger Dubuis flying tourbillon with an exposed microrotor movement sold for peanuts, basically, relatively speaking. I think there was what else was there that was bought from the only watch? Let me see. So this was La Monégasque, which sold basically for half or less than half of the lower end of the estimate. This was from Only Watch 2013. Let me see. I think we can do a search within this auction using Only Watch as a keyword. Can we? No, it doesn't work. Wait a second. I'll remember. I think it was Breguet. Was it? No. There was a stainless steel Lange one. Did you see this?
Yeah. That one also a lot of money. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Within the estimate, so nothing earth-shattering, but it was one of the watches that performed quite well. One of only 20. These two you would like, just like I do. Yeah?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. The only thing I'm not a big fan of those lugs, but the watch
No.
overall is pretty nice.
No, that's the best part of those
Yeah, I know.
old
I know
school
you love
knives.
them. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to agree on
Wait.
it.
Look at that. The Jaeger just next to it. The perpetual calendar sold for Look,
that sold fairly well as well, right?
yeah,
Because it's right above the estimate, and that's but it's like 7,750 in US dollars, and
that's
it's a
a
very sexy
crazy.
watch as
That's
well.
a crazy price. It's a nice price.
Yeah, I mean, what it adds up to at 25% premium, some other dues and whatever else, 12,000 for a perpetual calendar. That's not such a bad deal, is it?
That's a good deal. But once I was shocked. You can find those. So this exact perpetual in like rose gold or yellow gold. At some point, and I'm pretty sure you still can today find them at less than 10K on the
Probably.
second hand. That is crazy. I'm just gonna buy one at some point because it's like it's right there. I love this watch, but I'm on a mission to find this exact watch, but in platinum, the limited to 250 pieces.
You already have a platinum
Yes,
JLT.
so I have this exact same collection,
Mhm.
but it is the triple calendar, not the
Ah,
perpetual, the triple
exactly.
limited 250 pieces in platinum. And I really want to find its correspondent perpetual calendar
Mm.
in platinum. It's the exact same watch, but with the perpetual. And I don't know. I think it's just cool. It's a cool thing to reunite those two watches. And it has a officer case back, which is pretty nice. But they do ask a lot of money. Usually, it's between 25 and $35,000, and it's not that often that you see them. So yeah, it's still over budget for me.
Yeah, honestly, anything platinum and limited edition, I think from a recognizable brand has
Yeah,
some sort of premium attached to it. It can be relatively cheaper, compared to other things. I mean, again, when you look at this watch, for example, platinum perpetual calendar chronograph built on the classic Lemania base, um, has that beautiful hinged case back. The case that I really like, that you don't particularly enjoy, I'm kind of annoyed to find out. Um, but yeah, look at that hand engraved disc for the moon phase
yeah,
indicator and everything. I mean, this is just a stunning piece. And one thing that I always like about Vacheron is whether you like the designs or not, it's distinctive. I mean, you can't confuse it for anything else. Like, it doesn't look like a Patek or AP for that matter. It's always its own thing, and I appreciate that. But yeah, this one sold again for the kind of watch you are getting. It's not such a bad deal, but then again, it's not cheap either, right? It's still more than $60,000. The What was the other Omni watch that was here? The Roger Dubuis was an Omni watch, and then we were just looking at the Getreide GMT. That was an only watch. This one, the Vacheron Constantin with the Chanlevé enamel dial, the world time in platinum.
Oh, that's pretty nice. That's really nice.
This watch was apparently from the same only watch auction as that Roger Dubuis. And look at it. It sold for even less than the
Oh
low.
my god, that's that is crazy. To be fair, that watch is huge.
I know.
It's hard to wear on the wrist. You have to be a big boy to wear that watch. It's like 44 maybe, and it's thick. Oh, 42. Oh, I tried it on the wrist.
It
It
wears big.
wears so much larger.
I know these pieces. I mean, the Vacheron World Time. It's a big watch.
Yeah.
It wears larger than it is on paper as well. So, but yeah, that's like $42,000, which is, if you're obsessed with collecting pieces from, only watch auctions for one reason or another, that could have been an interesting opportunity for someone. But overall, yeah, the independents performed ridiculously well. There's the 20th anniversary of the Octa limited edition with the brass movement from 2022. So very unique for that reason. That sold for almost 1.4 million in Hong Kong dollars. Which amounts to 180,000 or something, I think, roughly.
Yeah.
I kind of like the yellow gold dial, which is less and less common as well when it comes to jaune as it modernizes. Then what else? There was another Acrivia. Okay, finally, it actually did compute the only watch. That's why I was so quickly able to locate it. Like this Moza, for example, was an only watch as well from 2019. The Perpetual Moon.
That is a nice looking watch. I like that.
Yeah, and again, it went for a fraction of the pre-auction estimate. Look at that.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what you would pay for a Moza at retail these days, more or less.
Do you think it shows that people right now they are not in the mood for buying expensive watches at big auctions? Because usually this is when you see the prices, the crazy prices come out.
Yeah.
Do you remember, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago at Phillips auction when there was a Hulk that sold for $100,000? Remember that one?
Insane. I mean,
Do you think we could ever see that again?
not for those kinds of watches, I think, because I really think some of that was really the excitement of people who had never been in the watch game, and
I agree with you.
And
They
were there for what they thought was an investment purpose and what they thought was an opportunity for.
They were thinking, "Ooh, I have to act quickly." They jumped on the first thing they saw.
Yeah, and I think they were also trying to speculate themselves, right? I think there was a lot of turnover, a lot of flipping. Um, I don't think that's going to come back anytime soon. Things are cyclical. Who knows? Maybe a few decades down the road, there might be another craze. But I don't think that's something that's going to happen again and again. But I think there is some sort of new hierarchy that's being established. I mean, in the sense that rare watches from some of the hottest makers still command a lot of money. Um, a lot of interesting watches that are hard to get at retail still sell at around or slightly more than retail. So that seems to be sticking, but the premiums that seem to be all across the board with certain brands or anything remotely hot, to the factor of twice as much, 3 times as much. I think that was a fad, and that seems to have died down for the most part. Yeah, this is a cool watch because it's like a perpetual moon, so it's a very precise indicator of the moon phase that like deviates by 1 day or something in
Yeah,
more than a
it's like
millennium.
one. The deviation is like one out of every 1,000 years or something stupid like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty crazy.
And it is the Vanta Black dial, that pitch black dial.
Yeah, look
Um,
how the hands they just pop out like they were just floating on the dial. I know that many people they don't like the Vanta Black, but I really like it, like a lot.
I don't like the Vanta Black when they make a case out of it, and they had that basically what was a troll watch, that was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
practically
True.
invisible against a black surface. Vanta Black as a dial color, as a particular aspect of the watch, I actually appreciate. I mean, this looks just stunning, with the pink gold case. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, if you think about it, the what is it, 163 800s, that's like 21,000 US dollars, I think, at retail.
Oh, it's a yeah.
The With a moon phase indicator, I think you can barely
That's
get a Moza at
yeah.
retail like that.
No, that's probably 35K at retail or
And this is, again,
30K.
this is a one of a kind version that was
Yeah.
sold um, some years back. So
Guys,
that's a bargain.
Moser makes awesome watches and you can get them for nothing. What are you waiting for? See, you can see the distortion on the bottom. That's because the shape of the crystal is curved to follow your wrist, and
Mhm.
I really like that.
Increasingly I'm a fan of this mustachio bridge, which I think is in what was it, blue in yours, or is your
Yeah, mine has it blue.
rotor blue? This is blue as well.
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
So interestingly, um, when they have that bridge in blue, it is an indication that you have the double hairspring thingy from Moser, like the premium escapement,
Mm.
right? They they color the bridge. They give the coloring to the bridge. Usually it's blue when you have the double escapement. However, mine does not have it, but I still have the blue color because mine is the It's the Buccara Blue edition. And I
Nice.
think they made it before they took the decision to have this coloring for the bridges.
Ah,
So mine predates the rule.
that's the Straumann double hairspring, right? Is that
Yeah,
what
you
it is?
can see that you have the double neck thingies because you have two hairsprings. Uh,
Yeah.
two hairsprings, one balance. And Audemars Piguet does one hairspring, two balance to basically get the same effect.
Power reserve indicator. They have their
Screwed
signature,
in chaton
yeah,
and
double
the
double stripe
Moser.
for the bridge. Very, very cool pieces.
I think Moser is all around a winner brand. They have such a strong identity, and they make almost everything in house, and it's just really really nice. And they are affordable. They are attainable. There's no particular wait list unless for a few specific models, and they are fairly priced in my opinion. And on the secondary market, you can buy like a platinum watch for 12K. That's a bargain. That's amazing. Any other brand, it would be twice as more on the secondary market
I'm
for a contemporary piece.
by and large, I'm a big fan. I think, I don't like the Streamliner as a design, but the chronograph version has a very beautiful movement. I think overall they're at a good price point, even at retail. But of course, on the secondary market, you get even better deals. Um, like you said, the brand has a distinctive style, recognizable, a couple of aesthetic flourishes, which uh, anyone would appreciate. Like you said, it's very rare that a brand makes their own hairsprings, right? That level of vertical integration, which I'm sure there are one or two exceptions. When it comes to one part, it's very hard to achieve, but it's in and of itself very impressive that they make their own hairsprings and that they supply other brands, in fact, with that precision engineering manufacturer that makes their hairsprings. Yeah, I mean the whole troll watch thing that they do once every so often, once every other year or something for Watches and Wonders, that I don't necessarily appreciate. I think it's unnecessary, but maybe I'm too serious or too old school to appreciate the humor in that. The Swiss cheese watch, the Apple Watch version of, mechanical version of the Apple Watch,
Mhm.
etc. Those, that was a little over my head. It's not something that I understood or appreciated, but it is what it is. Overall, I
Yep.
think Mose is a great brand.
So what are we looking at?
So this
Activia.
is this is the other Acrivia, an AK01, again a one of a kind piece, monopusher chronograph with a tourbillon. And again, one of the watches that sold quite well on the auction. Pink gold dial, partially open worked. The tourbillon cage is made out of titanium.
Yeah, it has a silicon escapement, I think. Or is it just blued? I think it's a silicon escapement.
Let's see.
I'm not sure. Actually,
I'm not-
it looks like it has been blued.
Yeah. Here's what it says in the lot essay. The angles of the interior and exterior flanks are polished by hand. They feature a manual circular graining. The finishing of all steel parts are done by hand, and the hand engraved inscriptions are finished in pink gold. When we look at the movement, and then it says the 1 minute tourbillon cage is made out of titanium and weighs only 0.45 grams.
Yeah.
And then the tourbillon is connected through its external gear to a disengaged gear at 4 o'clock. Right here. And it says, when the chronograph is started, by the button in the two crown, the two gears engage. A 60-second subsidiary dial is situated at 2 o'clock, and a 30-minute register is at 10 o'clock with the power reserve sector below, and the column wheel is visible at 12 o'clock, which is a nice touch. This is another piece that sold for a crazy amount, 4.8 basically million in Hong Kong dollars for 7
Yeah,
8
over $1 million then. No, over $500,000.
Yeah, let's get down to the brass tacks. 614, more than 614,000. That was lot 2594, a one-of-a-kind AK-01, a tourbillon monopusher chronograph in titanium with a titanium tourbillon cage as well. I kind of like how the column wheel peeks through at 12 o'clock.
Good morning, Gun Dog. Thank you for your upload.
Hey, thank you, Gundog. Thank you for your kind words as well. And yeah, overall, the independents from this selection did extremely well. The Voutilainens, the Akrivia, Recepis. What else was there that was interesting that we didn't attend to in the previous episodes? I mean, look, even the relatively usual, even though very aspirational pieces by Jean performed really well. The Chronomètre Bleu, of course, which is one of the hypest watches to have ever hyped, that's sold for 630,000.
So that's what, 80K?
Yeah, and that's well over retail. The Chronomètre Souverain, which is not nearly as desirable, but still quite interesting, attainable, I think, with a reasonable wait time actually from the boutique, even though
Yeah.
people might rush into it in this way. It's about $40,000, I guess, with this.
Yeah. And as you said, you can get those at the boutique usually.
The platinum Octalune with the white gold dial.
What are your general impressions with Jaune watches?
I think the for most of the pieces, the amounts of money they go for on the secondary market, I think, is unconscionable. But then again, they're not the only brand or the only kind of watches that follow that trend. They have started to come down, so I think that's they are going to get to a more reasonable level. I like I generally like the design aesthetic, right? I like how it is like antiquated looking
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
relatively contrived way, even. I still enjoy that. Like the Octa chronograph, which was only produced for a handful of years, I think for about 4 years. That's one of my favorites watches of all time in terms of design. It was
Hmm.
replaced by the Centigraph, so didn't had a pretty short shelf life, and for that reason, it's extremely expensive on the secondary market. But anyway, um, I really like the tourbillon and the resonance. Um, yeah, and otherwise, I think really the chronomètre Souverain. I think that's actually the design that I like the best, which perhaps is ironic, in light of everything that I've said until now. But I think overall, I like this the best. I like the case designs. The finishing of the movements is nothing to really write home about, especially at that price point. Um, Not to mention the secondary market, but they're always thoughtfully designed. There's an architecture to them that I appreciate. Yeah, at retail, I think a lot of it sounds okay. Um, but on the secondary market, I don't think I could ever justify myself how much, especially some of the more rare examples, go for.
Yeah. Like old Resonance going for like $2 million, something like this.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
So some people, they really pay a crazy amount of money for like the early model. Yeah, like a early model Resonance. That's 1 million, 2 million. If you find the right guy, they're gonna buy it.
you know Bill Sanders, right? Watch Art
Yes.
Sci.
Hmm.
He has a brass movement resonance that he bought probably 7, 8 years ago by now. And at that time, I think he got it on the secondary market, like right below retail or something.
Mm.
Um, crazy how things, um, how things work out. I don't think he's the kind of guy who would sell it, but literally, he could buy a house with the profit at this point.
Yeah.
And that is a serious question, right? And of course, as a principle, I don't really like flipping and people who cycle through watches uh, every few months, um, to get the hottest thing and turn it over for a profit and go into something else. That's not really something that fits my understanding, my approach to collecting. But then again, you have extreme cases like that, right, where you could get lucky in this way, could get allocated a watch that sells for unconscionable amounts on the secondary markets. And I feel like I can't really begrudge a person who makes that kind of profit in that case, right? I mean, what
Yeah,
what
of
can you say?
course.
If you buy a watch for 45 $45,000, and you wake up 4 years later and it suddenly sells for more than 250,000, I can understand if you start thinking about selling that watch. Um, it's an interesting world. So overall, yeah, I can't quite understand. Well, I can't quite wrap my mind around, let's put it this way, around the hype. But on the other hand, it's also very easy to understand because it's um, it's one of the most bankable independent brands. It's recognizable enough, but it's not as limited as Philippe Dufour. So a lot of the examples are accessible enough, even if it is at a premium, even if it is on the secondary market, um, to the point that you can build an entire collection, um, even though you might still have to spend a lot. Um, it is quite rare, even if you think of it in terms of the entire production, which is still, I think, less than 1,000 per year. And they have a very good principle of never looking back. So when something is discontinued, it stays that way and it preserves its value. If it retains its value, even if it doesn't gain significantly, although oftentimes it does that too. I was just reading an article about the Wertheimers, who became, apparently one of the brothers became the richest person in Switzerland just yesterday or something. Um, they injected Jean with a lot of cash. I think it was 2016.
Mm.
And that really allowed them to expand on to a certain extent, but certainly sustain their global presence. They take great care of some of their most loyal collectors, like um, all kinds of parties and events and even retreats every so often, certainly on a regular basis. I think on a monthly basis, where they have their boutiques. Um, so that is something larger than watches, and a lot of people
Oh yeah, of course.
are very much taken by that, including me. Right? I love watches, but I love it. I like even better the kinds of connections that watches can inspire. So it's nice to have that as a built-in component, as a built-in experience when you buy into a brand, quite literally, like the collectors community. That seems to be um, like a genuine experience for many people that they seek out, that they cherish. Um, so yeah, a lot of that helps a lot, and the fact that um, Mr. Wonderful and some others gave it a more mainstream recognition also didn't hurt. Did you by any chance come across the new video that Lange posted on their website, on their YouTube page?
No, I didn't.
They have Jay Leno. I mean, he has an extremely unlikable vibe, like to the point that you can't. I mean, in retirement, especially, it's almost impossible to believe that this guy was a talk show host. I don't know. Maybe it's my bias for Conan that I don't actually like Jay Leno, so that might be the source. But he is wearing a lange. He is part of the conversation. That includes, of course, Herr Wilhelm Schmidt. Mm, right here.
Oh, it's muted?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I don't want to get
of course.
too extended and too uninterrupted. I don't want to get a strike, but this was basically a conversation they had at the concours in
Concours d'élégance.
yes, but the one in Newport Beach, Rhode Island.
Mm.
So because they started sponsoring not only the one in London and Italy, but more recently they started hosting a show in Newport Beach, Rhode Island. So they apparently had a conversation there that they filmed, and they included Jay Leno as well. I think Jay Leno actually may be the president of the organization that holds this concours. So um, anyhow, yeah, I mean, look at his face. Unbelievable. Like he really looks like he doesn't want to be there. Um, and yeah, again, it's just hard to believe that this guy used to host a late night show, which by definition, I don't know how familiar you are with that part of American culture, but it has to be the late night show host has to be extremely likable, right? It has to be someone that the everyman can identify with,
Yep.
except of course, they are not the everyman, but anyway. You should be able to suspend your disbelief. It's like a friend. A lot of people listen to it, at least used to listen to it in the old school mode when Jay Leno still hosted it in their beds. So it's a very intimate moment, even though people don't think twice about it, of course. But these guys were in your bedroom for decades on end. Anyway, still can't believe that Jay Leno was actually that guy for such a long time. Another favorite and another low-key great watch that was included in the Oak collection was this. You probably know this, the Panoretrograph.
Mm-hmm.
Again, of course, much less artisanal than Lange or some of the higher
Yeah,
horological
definitely
pieces.
much less. I mean, yeah, it's a crazy watch. It's just less of my thing, especially the dial. It's not my favorite.
I like that fan-like triple sector for the minute
Mm-hmm.
counter. I like the countdown function, which is a little chime, as you will see, with each elapsed minute. Absolutely useless, but very charming. Um,
One could argue that a watch in itself is completely useless.
yeah, I mean, so is any mechanical watch, really, but
Yeah.
we're not complaining. But yeah, that was lot 2515, and that sold for 163,800.
20,000 around that.
Yeah, a little more than 21,000.
Yeah, which is good given that you have a big gold watch with such a complication. It's a good price. I mean, for the buyer.
Yeah, flyback functionality, countdown functionality, unique design if you buy into it. Um, and again, the movement has an interesting architecture, maybe not the most artisanal finish. It's still interesting enough to look at, thinking that exhibition case backs are given to just about anything. I guess this has a couple of different things that you can look at, from the column wheel to the gong and the hammer, actually, for the countdown chimer.
All right. So over here it is 8 o'clock
Good
in the
night, Chris.
morning.
Yeah,
I have to go. Just
you have to go work.
quick question.
Quick,
Quick
quick,
question.
quick wristwatch check. What's up?
Quick this. Out of the auction, get one watch. Which one?
From the Oak collection,
Yep.
one watch. I think I could make that choice very easily, but now that you put me on the spot, probably it's gonna be hard. Honestly, very, very quickly, I think I will pull. I'll pull kind of. Yeah, maybe too predictable, but this AP perpetual calendar from the 50s.
Wow, nice. What size it is?
36.5 actually, which
Oh,
is
that's pretty good.
gigantic for the time period, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Look at those lugs.
yeah. And it has a radial day of the month. Oh,
Mhm.
that's a beautiful movement. That looks really good.
And yes, it is actually very legible, right? With the pointer
Yeah.
dates along the perimeter of the dial. Again, for a perpetual calendar from the 50s, a leap year indicator is not all that common and quite on the vanguard, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful watch. Did you have something in mind?
So mine would be the Vacheron perpetual repeater.
Ah, that's also great. I think that was, I want to say that was in the other auction,
Oh,
but that doesn't matter. There was another cool watch, was this triple date chronograph with the moon phase indicator by Breguet that once belonged to none other than Jean-Paul Belmondo.
oh, okay.
That's an interesting one. Um, but yeah, let's see. I want to show your selection, your choice as well to the folks here before you go.
Yeah, I'm a bit young. I didn't grow up with Jean-Paul Belmondo, but I do know that it is a big figure. Big,
Yeah,
big figure.
I'm a I'm a film buff. I look old.
Oh, yeah.
We're probably the same age, but yeah, this is a great choice too, with the teardrop lugs, perpetual calendar, minute repeater.
Yeah, I love that. Love it, love it. All right, young Brando, thank you for having me. And until next time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for being on board, and thank you, people in the chats. Chris, Gundog, if you guys are still here, good night. Thank you so much. I think I will go for another hour. We certainly have a lot of interesting watches to discuss beyond the Oak collection. I want to say, again, of course, I'm having a little bit of a problem with my connection. I think we'll be fine. But yeah, I'm glad Swiss put me on the spot like that to choose one watch. And I don't regret choosing that reference 5516. Again, complicated, rare, incidentally also unsold. So I kind of like that watch. And beyond the celebrity stardust sprinkled on it, I quite like the triple dates calendar at lot 2637, the Breguet one. Even with, again, even without its association to Belmondo, um, I think it's a very good looking watch. I think it's as attractive as a 1518. Of course, this is a triple calendar and not a perpetual calendar like its Patek counterparts. It also has a similar flair to Jean-Claude Killy, the some of the most complicated watches that Rolex had ever made, the Dato Compacts, that is known by the name of the French Olympic skier and longtime Rolex ambassador, Jean-Claude Killy. And I also love perhaps this will look slightly more pedestrian compared to the other pieces, even though probably just as attractive. I would say the Cartier monopusher chronograph from the CP collection. Tortue, white gold with the oversized single Roman numeral at 12 o'clock, the blue accents. I think this is an extremely cool watch as well. And of course it's Cartier. It has that elegance and iconic shape, but just as importantly, it has that movement that was devised for them by THA, by Technique Horlogère Appliquée, which was an initiative by François Porjon and Denis Flageolet and Vienna Alter for a time period as well, even though, to my knowledge, it was only F.P. Jean and Denis Flageolet who collaborated on this particular movement. We talked quite a bit about Jean in this episode, but Denis Flageolet, if it doesn't ring a bell, is the horological mastermind behind De Bethune, which is probably one of the other hot independent makers of our day. We were wrapping up our conversation on this curation from the Oak collection, putting particular emphasis on the fact that this performed quite well. Too bad Swiss has just left, but this Mosa perpetual calendar is an amazing piece as well. The perpetual one has a movement that was devised by Mosa even before the current ownership by the famous watchmaker Andreas Strehler. I think it was introduced in 2005 or 2006, but I know for a fact that it won the Best Complicated Watch Award in 2006 in the Grand Prix, the Oscars of the horological world. Very ingenious application and simplification of a perpetual calendar movements. It has the so-called flash date in an oversized display at 3 o'clock, instantly switching at midnight. The display for the month is simplified, and it is indicated by virtue of a micro hand that's deployed right under the hand stack. You have, of course, 12 indices for the 12-hour markers, but also 12 months. There's a power reserve indicator at 9 o'clock, small seconds at 6, And you also have, as you can see, a leap year indicator on the back of the watch that is integrated onto the bridge plates of the movement. Again, beautifully designed, very elegant and relatively simplified, considering its complication. Very distinctive, even without that fancy blue dial, the smoked or fumé blue dial that identifies it with Moser. I think it's also a perpetual calendar that is very distinctive, a prestige complication that is rethought and simplified. So a great example of the kind of work that is produced by H. Moser et Compagnie here at lot number 2585 from the Oak collection. And this watch actually sold for 163,800 in Hong Kong dollars, which is a little more than 21,000. An absolutely stunning piece from 2016 in white gold, 40 millimeters in diameter with the fumé blue dial. The Voutilainen pieces overall sold really well. The 28 SC with the sportier case, sweep center seconds, and a very unique red guilloche dial, Arabic numerals at the quarters, and pink gold accents that seem to actually go really well with the polished titanium case. The sweep center seconds version of the caliber 28 with its characteristically oversized balance wheel and the black polished balance bridge. And of course, with the lower beat rates of the movements, which is 2.5 hertz by frequency, that's 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour. You have quite a spectacle that goes on right here when you turn the watch over. The anglage is beautiful with many interior angles. Even the wolf's teeth of the wheels is hand finished. This was lot 2587, which is, I believe, one of 10 pieces of a limited edition in a titanium case of the 28 SC. with a red guilloche dial. The decorations are engine turns by hand. And this piece realized a hammer price to the tune of almost 1.4 million in Hong Kong dollars. And that is roughly 178,000 in US dollars. We have looked at its dressier counterparts right here, which has a checkerboard design, another red dial that is Chanlevé enamel and has this mesmerizing effect. That piece sold for an amount in excess of 2.5 million in Hong Kong dollars at lot 2588, which is more than 320,000. $25.89 is a more traditional Van Uyt, the 28, in a two-tone silver dial with three major distinctive guilloche patterns, a basket weave pattern for the oversized subsidiary dial for seconds, a fish scale pattern for the center of the dial, and Claude Paris or hobnail for the hour track. Again, stunning piece in platinum with a gilt finish on the bridges, which are decorated by Geneva stripes, a perlage on the base plate, this is much less rare and distinctive compared to the other examples of Voutilainen timepieces that went up for sale from this collection. Nevertheless, it sold for an amount in excess of 1 million Hong Kong dollars, which is more than 128,000 in US dollars. Again, performed relatively well, if not spectacularly. Another Van Uyt that has an anthracite gray dial. I think these pieces are sometimes even more striking in these simpler and distilled versions. Of course, the unique dial colors, the customized flourishes might make them more rare and therefore more desirable, but I think this is beautiful as well, with this time a vague or wave pattern at the center of the dial, an anthracite gray dial with a variety of decorations that are applied with a hand-operated rose lathe. The case is the classic 39 millimeter version with the stylized teardrop lugs in 18 karat white gold. The Van Uyt is the absolute classic for Kari Voutilainen. And lot 2590 once again sold for a similar amount, right around 128,000. Please hit the like button, by the way, and if you have any requests for the last half hour of the show, any watch related questions, feel free to send them in with a super chat. If you want me to pull up a watch and consider it in further detail from this auction or from any of the other Hong Kong auctions that have just concluded, feel free. The Christie's Important Watches is the next link that I sent. This is the Oak Collection. A couple of other watches that I didn't bring up but wanted to consider. At lot 2612 is Louis Audemars pocket watch in 18 karat gold, a perpetual calendar, monopusher chronograph, a minute repeater with indications for the leap year and the moon phase, an enamel dial, 56 millimeters in diameter. Look at that movement. Its engine turns on the back with this barleycorn pattern. Usually another inscription, initials or even a number can go right in here, but it was left blank. There was a dedication, as you could see on the inside of the case back already. I think you might say that lot 2612 went for a song for less than $50,000, $48,500, really. There was a Patrick Philippe perpetual calendar perpetual calendar minute repeater, pink gold from 1882 with a moon phase indicator as well. Again, another stunning movement of the old school three-finger bridge architecture. 56 millimeters in diameter for its pink gold case. It does arrive with the archival extracts from Patrick Philippe. The initials engraved on the back, the initials of the owner engraved on the back cover, apparently. Sounds beautiful. The hands are also a set of spade hands, heat blued, I think very elegantly twisted for the minute hand as well. A beautiful piece at lot 2615 that is sold for almost $1.2 million in the local currency, and that amounts to more than 153,000 in US dollars. There's another unique design from early 20th century. A perpetual calendar that foregoes the moon phase indicator, in this case, another Patek Philippe pocket watch, 57 millimeters in diameter. Beautiful condition. Enamel dial. That was lot 2614, which sold for an amount that is in the range of 170,000. $26.16 is another pocket watch that comes with this beautifully ornate bow with a marble stance. It's a time-only piece with Breguet numerals. A sapphire cabochon on the winding crown. And a beautiful enamel painting on the case back of this 44 millimeter yellow gold case. This is a relatively new watch produced in 2021. Which depicts in cloisonné enamel the panorama of Mont Blanc from Lac Blanc. entirely in grand feu enamel. The sky, with all the depth and richness of the clouds and sun rays, is actually in translucent enamel, which they call flanqué. And of course, the mountainous scene, as you can see, is in cloisonné enamel, where all these different sections, so to speak, all these different cells are enclosed in hairline threads out of gold, which are filled with appropriate colors of enamel powder and then fired multiple times after the application of each color, and finally polished to a glass-like finish. The dial itself is enamel with yellow gold details that includes that framed sector for the subsidiary seconds dial, the leaf-shaped hands for the hour and minutes, and also the applied Breguet numerals, beautiful railroad track style for the minutes sector, and a stunning stand that comes with it. Lot 2616-2 for a reference, 992 line 108J-001 from 2021. That sold for 2,772,000 in Hong Kong dollars, which is in excess of 355,000 in US dollars. I think this was a stunning piece as well. It's a vintage Memovox that is sometimes called lapis because it has this very beautiful two-tone blue dial with a mottled finish that is reminiscent of that semi-precious stone, even though it has nothing to do with it. This is actually a lacquered dial. The classic JLC alarm wristwatch from 1963. You guys remember that Charlie Dunn and I did an episode on the Memovox talking about other JLC collectibles, as well as the other iconic alarm wristwatch from Vulcane as well. So if you want to check that out, click the link that I will post in the chat. But yes, after listening to all those minute repeaters, this cricket-like buzzing or wheezing sound of an alarm wristwatch Might not have been the most attractive, but rest assured that it's enough to wake you up, even in the most desolate motel room that you might find yourself in at the other end of the world. This is a 37 millimeter stainless steel case. Again, a very relatively rare and very desirable example of the Memovox that sold for an amount in the range of 9,700 in US dollars. Not unconscionable, not extremely expensive, I have to say. That was lot 2626 for the Jaeger-LeCoultre stainless steel Memovox with the so-called lapis dial, which is actually a lacquered blue dial, reference 855. This one was, again, a relative bargain. A vintage civilian type 20 from Breguet. 3 counters with the big eye at 3 o'clock. A bidirectional rotating bezel for the 12 hours. A stunning dial which seems to have aged quite evenly and very attractively, particularly tropicalized at 3 o'clock for that 15 minutes totalizer. This Type 20 actually has a very unique history, because it's not only a great example of that classic tool watch, of that stainless steel chronograph with flyback functionality that has all the vintage and toolish charm of any other watch with a similar provenance that's connected to the military as well. After all, Breguet was one of the 5 classic manufacturers of the watches, of the pilot's chronographs that were made after the Type 20 specification for the French Aéronaval, the air forces of the French Navy. This particular watch was actually this was actually bought by Mr. Rockefeller and given to Sir Jack Brabham, the Formula One champion, iconic race car driver who owns this for about a decade. It's one of those first generation of Breguet Type 20 watches, presented to him in 1960 by Esso to celebrate his first Formula One win in 1959, or perhaps during the 1960 Formula One season, where Brabham was once again the drivers' champion. And the watch is accordingly engraved on the case back with the logo of Esso, which sponsored Sir Brabham, and it says Champion du Monde 1959. And you can see under the hood that classic Verjou 23 movements with the flyback functionality. Great classic column wheel chronograph caliber. Lot 2639 also went for a song, I have to say, for a watch that has this kind of provenance, and that already, from a horological perspective, is something significant. 77,500, roughly speaking, significantly less than the pre-auction estimates. I particularly love, again, the big eye counter for the minutes, the syringe hands for the hour and minutes, as well as the spear-shaped, centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand. I love how in these classic chronographs, and this was the case in the revival version that I have as well, where the tips of the hands are slightly bent to accommodate the domed crystals. Beautiful, beautiful piece. Please hit the like button if you're listening, if you're learning anything, if you're enjoying the show. That's absolutely vital. For me, it makes all the difference. I think I want to maybe bring up 2 or 3 more watches tonight and maybe call it a night at midnight. So if you want to support the channel, if you want to squeeze in a last minute watch related question, or if you simply want to show your support and contribution to this platform that we are building on the passion and knowledge of the watches, feel free to contribute with a super chat, super sticker, or maybe later with a super thanks. You have other options that have direct links in the video description as well. I wanted to take a look at these 2 enamel dial watches that actually didn't sell. Lot 2633 is a micro painting in Clausenet enamel that is a depiction of the Neptune, which I guess fits the Seamaster. I want to see, I might have something about this dial in the famous book, Le Cadran, because this is a dial that was made by the famous Stern Frère dial manufacturer, which of course was built by the family that ended up buying Patek Philippe. Similar dials were made by them for Rolex as well. Now I'm talking about the Neptune specifically. Let me see. This can take a little bit, so I'm gonna shy away from that. Neptune is, of course, the god of the seas, also called Poseidon in the Greek pantheon. Neptune is the Roman name. That's why I said it's entirely fitting for the dial of a seamaster. Apparently, these dials with the Neptune motif were made by a Mrs. Nellie Richard or Richard for Sternfrère from the late 1940s until the 1950s. She made similar cloisonné enamel dials featuring the Roman god Neptune or the Greek god Poseidon, dragons and maps that were commissioned by Omega, Rolex, Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, and others. Such cloisonné enamel dial pieces are some of the rarest ever by Omega. Extremely small series of watches with such dials were produced between 1946 and 1956. Apparently, in that time period, this design proved to be one of the most expensive. Mrs. Richard was paid for the commission about 86 francs per dial. Omega, in turn, was charged 155 francs by Sternfrère, and I'm assuming that the watches themselves couldn't have cost more than a few $100 at the time. Very good condition, 18 karat yellow gold piece, time only, Seamaster, reference OT 2520, and 34 millimeters of diameter. A very extensive set, as you have seen from the staging in the photos. The piece had an estimate that was set in the range between 2 million to 4 million Hong Kong dollars, which would have put the low end of that estimate to an amount in excess of $250,000 in US dollars. But this is one of the watches that didn't sell. Lot number 2633 from the Oak collection. There is a beautiful enamel dial piece that did actually sell. So I do want to bring that up. That was an Universal Genève with a rooster on the dial. Basically a Universal Genève pole router in 18 karat pink gold, 35.5 millimeters in diameter, with elegantly downturned lugs, bumper style self-winding movements, with a mirror polished chapter ring in pink gold as well, with engine turned markers for the hours, and a cloisonné enamel painting of a rooster at the center of the dial, Dauphine hands, sweep center seconds. Very interesting and elegant piece. Here's the bumper style self-winding movements. The case seems slightly polished, but still preserves most of its original contours. This is an Universal Genève dress watch in 18 karat pink gold, 35.5 millimeters with a bumper automatic caliber and a cloisonné enamel painting of a rooster on the dial that sold as lot number 2623 of the Oak collection for $214,200 in Hong Kong dollars. Which is an amount in excess of $27,400. I think I have time for maybe one more watch. What should I bring up? I think there's a lot that is still interesting and that I didn't discuss over these 3 discrete episodes. I think ultimately I might have to go with lots 2557. I have to say I'm very, at once very happy, but also curious about how well these 3 platinum pieces by Vacheron Constantin have performed. There was also a platinum two-hander dress watch that's in the traditional style. That's didn't perform as well, but still not bad. But lots 2557, 2558, and 2559 performed really well. The two perpetual calendar chronographs I discussed in a previous installment. There are two different generations and two different sizes of the same case shape and same complication, namely the perpetual calendar chronograph that is built on the base of the classic Nemanja caliber CH27. But there's also a reference 47-245 at lot 2557 that also sold well. This is also a platinum piece with a 37 millimeter case with stepped lugs and a partially open worked dial. A limited edition made on the 247th anniversary of Vacheron Constantin, meaning in 2002. And this is a double, this is a day-date piece with a retrograde date hand, and again with a partially skeletonized dial. You have a subdial at 6 o'clock, which has a pointer indicator for the day of the week, and in the form of a downward facing crescent in the upper half of the dial, you have a scale for the 31 days of the month, which is indicated with a retrograde hand that snaps back to 1 at the beginning of each month. The Maltese cross, again, prominently displayed under the hand stack, making good aesthetic use of the open worked aesthetic of the dial. Good visual use, I meant to say. The movement looks quite distinguished from the open worked, from the cutout sections of the dial. The platinum case is matched with a platinum buckle in the half Maltese cross style. And lot 2557 also performed fairly well and sold for a good amount of money. The estimated value was set between 280,000 to 550,000 in Hong Kong dollars. And finally, the watch sold for 403,200 in Hong Kong dollars, which is more than 51,700 in US dollars. Again, I was positively surprised by how well these three complicated platinum pieces by Vacheron Constantin performed in this auction, where many watches didn't sell, where many others have gone for way below their estimated value. These watches performed fairly well. I wish I were in the room to figure out who was actually buying, because they certainly have good taste. Let's close off with this interesting Longines chronograph with a two-tone dial, two-tone silver dial, elegant bicompax configuration with the two registers beautifully aligned and perfectly proportioned in relation to the crown, which sits nice and neat on the case. The lugs are beautifully structured and decorated. The watch comes with an archival extract from Longines. It's in stainless steel, 35 millimeters in diameter. The reference number is 4443. Hand-wound caliber 13ZN. That was sold on May 19th, 1942 to a company by the name of Ostersetzer, which was apparently Longines' agent in Italy at the time. The piece is delivered with original Longines labels, blue tachymeter scale on the two-tone dial. Looks really fantastic, very aesthetically pleasing, even with the minor imperfections on the dial, which I much prefer personally to a refinished piece. Here's that famous 13ZN chronograph movement, column wheel, hand wounds, the archival extracts with the tags of the watch. This is a classic Longines chronograph in stainless steel with the movement 13ZN, which has flyback functionality, which in fact is one of the first commercially produced, serially made chronograph movements with flyback functionality. This piece sold for 81,900. It was part of the Oak Collection, part of the Oak Collection Part 1 auction as lots 2620, and 81,900 in Hong Kong dollars amounts to 10,500 in US dollars, roughly speaking. This brings our proceedings today to an end. It's slightly past midnight here. I've been live for about 3 hours. Thank you for your support and presence in the chat. Thank you for your comments, suggestions, and questions. Especially thank you for your likes. If you have chanced upon this broadcast, I'm here practically every day with watch content, live streams, and also short form reviews of new releases, historical and horological deep dives on different models and complications. So check it out. You can always use super chats, super stickers, super thanks to contribute to the channel. A monthly membership will give you access to exclusive content. And of course, there are links in the video description if you wanted to contribute more. Again, this platform is made possible by you, and it serves exclusively you, its audience. I don't have any sponsors. I'm not beholden to any industry interests. I'm not paid by any gray market dealers or auction houses for that matter. So your support is integral to the sustenance and growth of this channel. It certainly keeps the lights on, and any amount of money contributed to the channel goes right back and is, I hope, reflected in the quality and quantity of content on the channel. That's certainly been the case so far. So I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thank you also, Swiss, for jumping on the panel earlier. I really appreciate you all. Don't forget to hit the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.